Hello and welcome to another Kettle One Spritz Society, Botanical Spritz Society. I am so excited to introduce all of you to Sarah Armstrong, who is joining us from Baltimore, Maryland today. Sarah is an incredible events planner there, has been working in events for most of her adult life, which she's very young, but still very much an expert. And Sarah puts on just these beautiful seamless events. And as an event planner, she gets to see firsthand just how folks kind of manage and deal with events. And she knows where the pitfalls are, maybe where the challenges are, and what you should really focus on when putting together your own event. So Sarah's going to take us through all of that. But before we get into this very brilliant class from our friend, I want to remind all of you that if you want to see more content like this, if you want to participate in all of our classes and programming, make sure you come over and like this page here on Facebook or over on YouTube, where we broadcast almost every weekday at 2 p.m. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter, which is a place where all of this information comes out in real time. So you can find out about classes like Sarah's and other Spritz Society events as they happen. So Sarah, I am so excited to have you today. I've gotten some time with Sarah over the last few weeks. And I'm very grateful for it because I've learned I'm an event planner myself. And I feel like I've already learned so much from you. I can't wait for you to take this and run with it. So Sarah, please, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you. It's very flattering. I'm very excited to be here. So it's been quite the experience and opportunity to be able to work with all the partners, Portland Cocktail Week and Lush Life and Kettle One Botanical. So yes, I am from Baltimore. You introduced me pretty well that I've been doing events for pretty much my adult life, which isn't that long, but still long enough to have seen a lot of different things. So I have a different approach to, when I did teach like some elements about events. I want them to be evergreen and just kind of, across the board. They're a little bit ambiguous, mainly because every event's gonna be a little bit different. So I didn't want to steer to. I want these to be able to apply to whether you're planning a wedding or a bat mitzvah or memorial luncheon, unfortunately, or things like that. So we can go ahead and start. So I have a couple of, tips and things to kind of keep you mentally in the game during event planning so it stays fun for you. So we can go ahead and just move on to, I guess, the first. This is a little bit about me. I have a couple of I have a specialty in fine wine and food, as far as the event realms goes. And floral is always something that I really focus on too, just because I personally love them. I've been involved with florals for a really long time in different elements and things just growing up. But I will talk your ear off about events, which I'm doing right now. And if I ever have a chance to meet in person, then I will buy you a drink to make up for how long I talk at you about these certain things. So I think we're ready for the first tip. So I called this slide from chaos order. So there's no real exact science to planning an event. It's when you're kind of making a cocktail, it's a similar situation. You just throw a bunch of things together, muddle it all in, and then you wind up with something that's well balanced and thoughtful. So that is just kind of something to keep in mind. If you feel like you're floating around in space trying to collect all of these different things, it's a completely normal feeling. It will start to make sense eventually, but it does start off with just a bunch of random things at the beginning. So that is the first thing to keep in mind. So keeping it, KISS part one, keeping it sweet and simple. So there is a point that you do need to be a little bit realistic in what you can handle based on your work schedule and your personal life. So just be realistic about that. There are ways that you will naturally prioritize certain things. So you can, if you start off with this long list and say you're a month out from the event and you don't have a couple things left on that are going to get, you don't know how much time you have left to get those last couple of things done, you will naturally prioritize those by, you'll naturally prioritize them. Just things just won't get done. And if those things don't get done, that's okay. So if you have this long list, just be okay with, maybe not getting all of it done. If they wind up just getting pushed off, they're probably not going to be one of the main important things. And you should be okay with maybe them not getting finished. So just because one person had that at their event that you might have seen doesn't mean that you have to have it at yours. It's probably not a make or break, element. So just keep that in mind. Don't get too hard on yourself. And then we can move on to this is my number one thing that I love to tell people or try to keep them aware of. The internet is fantastic. It provides a platform for things like these or inspiration. There's photographs everywhere. There's blogs. There's a ton of people telling you all kinds of things to do, tutorials, all that kind of stuff. Try to limit how much inspiration you are taking in when you're thinking of certain things to do, just because it does get really overwhelming. Because there's a million different ways to do everything. If you find 10 different ways to do the same thing, it can just cloud your judgment and just make that maybe one seemingly small task and make it way overwhelming. So just kind of make sure that you kind of have a stopping point from when you're taking in different elements of inspiration. A lot of the times they might be there might be some photographs you see that you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. And a lot of times they will be for editorial shoots and they are going to be extravagant and they might not be, unfortunately, realistic to your means or what your realistically what your budget is. And so don't let all social media set the expectation for what you're wanting. It can definitely help guide the direction you want to go in, but it doesn't mean that's what you're expected to provide for your guests and things like that. So, and then after inspiration, so this is the base. So just like making a cocktail, like a botanical spritz, you have a base, which would be the spirit itself. But it's kind of like an element. I like to work in odd numbers. I think 3 is great. So I like the analogy of thinking about a 3-legged bar stool. You have these 3 core things. If you took one of them away, the bar stool will not stand on its own. So these 3 elements, I find that when you have your budget overall, these 3 elements will take up most of that budget. And if you did nothing else, if you just planned those 3 things and you showed up to the event, then that it would be an event that could run itself. For a wedding, traditionally it would be your venue, catering, which would include, the bar and food. And then that third one really depends on the person. But for a wedding, for me, it would be florals. So like it was the venue, the catering, and florals. I mean, obviously the husband was the big part too, but those 3 things are really big were big for me for a wedding. But for let's say another kind of event, bridal shower. Let's say it's a bridal shower. You would probably want to, food and drink will be a big one. The venue as well. And then maybe for that, it's, games, maybe, a big thing. So try to pick 3 things that might take up a larger chunk of that budget. And then that'll be your base and where you can build the rest of your event from. And then we can move on to the next slide. Compromise. So this is a word that I think when a lot of people use it, they think of it as a dirty word. But the fact is there will be some times that you do have to compromise on things, but you don't have to think about it in a negative way. You're just taking creative liberties with the recipe. So there's definitely ways that you can compromise, but you're not going to have to cut corners. So it could be DIYing something. I always say the dollar store, like when you're planning an event, the dollar store opens up to a million different possibilities. You go in there and you look at something and you're like, I never thought I could use that for X, Y, and Z, but here we are. And, you could still get the effect that you're really wanting. Another way is, or if the DIY, your time is money as well. So if you don't have time to, sit and DIY, if you have these, extraordinary ideas of wanting to really be hands-on with the wedding, but you're coming down to the wire, compromising isn't necessarily always meaning that you are compromising on quality or that intimate nature you might have with that element, but it just means that, you might have to save time by buying it as opposed to making it. So compromise is a lot of like I said, it's not a dirty word. It's just something that has to happen. And it just, if you allow yourself to be okay with that, then it does help with the overall stress level that you might take on from all the different things in an event. This is another one that I really like because I think a lot of times people run into that it's hard for other people to kind of put their own prerogative aside when they're talking to someone about their event. So, if this is something that you want to plan and it's something that's special to you. So be true to what you want to invest your time and money and energy into. Don't, have anyone, make you think that what you want isn't what you want because you know what you want. And it's okay if that want changes during the planning process. And don't feel bad about drawing these hard lines when it comes to your vision. You don't have to take everyone's opinions into consideration. Obviously there are people that you do really, that their opinions would really mean something to you, but sometimes it just gets a little bit overwhelming. And if you try to satisfy everybody, then you're most likely going to put yourself second. And that's just not something that you want to do. Whatever you're planning, it's going to be an investment for you. And, that is a perspective that I think is really important. I don't like to see people lose that. So, but yeah, don't yuck anybody's yum. that's my new favorite saying. So that's just you do you. That's all I got to say about that. And then we can move on to the next one. Okay, so kind of transferring back to too much inspiration, I use this little graphic and be mindful of the overall experience that you want. So just like, I referenced, a cocktail on the first slide saying everything's a little bit muddled together. Cocktails are based on, they're supposed to be cohesive. Lots of different elements come together as one, but they all support and help each other, just help every element shine. Same thing with your event. So I set up these 3 pictures where, all of these are, nice pictures, but 2 of them definitely match more than the other one. So when you're thinking of all these different elements, they might be very different on 2 different spectrums, but then try to find something that kind of brings them together. And just be mindful of what the overall vision that you have and what you're wanting to, like I said, portray with what you're planning. You don't want to have it look like the wall of a Fridays where it's just a bunch of knickknacks all over the place. You do want it to be cohesive and if there's something that you just can't, maybe a decoration or an idea of a frame or, something that just doesn't, it's just not working in the vision that you have, then just be okay with just cutting it. You can just get rid of it. Don't waste the time on trying to make it work inside the vision. If you're spending too much time trying to get it to work inside that vision, chances are that it just probably just be easier just to move on and then just replace it with something else or just leave it out completely. So just be mindful. Don't try to force anything that isn't going to come naturally to what your overall vision is. And then I think we're coming up on the last couple ones. Okay, so this is KISS part 2. Keep it significant, sweetheart. So kind of what Lindsay had touched on a little bit earlier. I think event planning can get really overwhelming, like I said, with so much saturation from the internet and inspiration from everything. It does get overwhelming. And with the outside elements of also friends and family and things like that, if it starts to become overwhelming, just pull it back a little bit. Take a second, take a woosah moment, and just really take a step back and just remember, regroup, because the worst thing you could do is just forget why you're even planning it, and then stop, missing on the vision and why you're even doing this in the first place. So don't ever lose touch with that. Don't start to make it feel like a job. That's what I'm here for. And, people in the profession, that's what, wedding and event planners are for. So, we really just want you to be able to enjoy the process and not get so bogged down by it. planning an event is a want and realistically not a need. So there's no need for it to be something that you start to dislike and don't want to do anymore. So yeah, so make sure it stays significant for your own personal reasons. And then I think there might be one or two more after this. Oh yeah, so then this is going back to the Kettle One Botanical. This is the cocktail that and the garnish that I created. So because I focus in food and drink so much in my day-to-day work life with events, I wanted to make sure I incorporate that with the garnish. So it is the Botanical One Spritz. So it is, or Orange You Just a Peach is what I like to call it. So it is the 1.5 ounces of the Kettle One Peach and Orange Blossom, topped with soda water and fresh ice. I like the edible gold leaf. I think it's a nice touch. Maybe it might not fit, might be a little bit too much for your vision or not, don't really need it. Just I like to add it in case, because I love gold. And then I love the idea of doing a cantaloupe and rolling it in a little bit of organic cane sugar, just because it creates like that juicy, almost like fuzzy vision of like a peach when you're looking at it. So, and then garnish it with extra flowers. But, if you can eat with your eyes, you can drink with your eyes too. So seeing something like that really, you can taste it even before you're tasting it, which I like. It's a play on textures and flavors and things like that. All the elements are a little bit different, but once they're all put together, they definitely help to amplify and just really support each other to create a well-balanced cocktail.
So Sarah, I love this drink for a bunch of reasons, but I feel like the main reason, like I knew that this drink was your recipe before I knew it was yours. All the recipes came in and they all had names, but it didn't have the person who made the drink right there. But I knew it was yours right away because it has the one thing that everyone forgets on their wedding day, right? That's the trope, you forget to eat, right?
Yep.
So if the cocktail came with a little snack, I'm like, I know Sarah did that one because I'm sure she's always yelling at her brides or whoever else, just put food in your body. I personally have to do that at Camp Rodemuck every 10 minutes. Where's the food? Have you had a snack? So I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah.
And I love a cocktail that has a garnish like this, that there's no extra, there's no waste. You're not making something that people are going to need to find a place to throw it away or put it down. It's a nice little snack. You pop it in and you've got a snack and a drink. I think it's so smart. Well, Sarah, we have some questions from the crowd, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and I talk really fast. I just like looked at the time and it's like, oh my God, I just like ran right
girls,
through that.
Okay.
So.
It's to be expected. All right. So tell me, have you ever worked with someone who insisted on DIYing something and you knew it was going to be more trouble than it's worth? And what was that?
Yes.
You're like every day.
I will myself. That was I definitely practicing what I preach was something that I definitely took a lesson in from myself during wedding planning. But I think actually one of the biggest things is, and I think it comes down to budget, which I'm, always in support of, regardless of someone's budget. It's a big investment for them. So I like to be very mindful of that. It doesn't matter what number that is. It's what you're willing to invest in. It's what you have. So, but I think the biggest thing that people that once get done are florals. Now with, the use of faux florals and things like that, I've found that the trend, people not wanting to invest in live florals anymore just because they don't last very long and they don't really, see the value in them, which is perfectly all right. But that is a big take on, because if you've got this big table, you have to be mindful of how much, and realistically the flowers might last. Well, faux florals still have their time. They do die eventually, but when you start to collect all of them, I mean, they do get pretty expensive, and a lot of times DIYing doesn't really wind up being the most cost effective. I think that more or less when people DIY, I think it can be more of just a it's a pick me up for them specifically, wanting to know that they could do it and they did do it and that they were happy with what they did. It's always nice to create something and then have this end product that you're super proud of. But yeah, I think floral arrangements are probably the number one thing. And sometimes it just is not.
It's a big project. I mean,
yeah,
there's a reason florists charge what they do. That's time intensive, it's labor intensive, and you're working with materials that go bad. So if you're going to try to take on fresh florals on your own, that to me sounds like a daunting task, especially for an event of any truly of any size. But with the the better looking fake flowers, it's also still a really big ask, even though they're not going to go bad, it's still a pretty big endeavor to take on. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right,
if
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So I have noticed, I've seen this trending a lot and I absolutely adore this idea. There are a lot of florists I've noticed that are actually making faux arrangements that you can rent, but they like sprinkle in real flowers in them just to kind of like change the aesthetic for certain kind of color schemes. But the base of them are faux, so it could be for like an altar or a mantelpiece or something. So if you're looking for something that might even just be a little bit more friendly, environmentally friendly, to instead of like essentially wasting all these flowers that are going to cut, that are going to die, maybe look for some florists that offer those rentals. So while you're not investing fully in fresh flowers, you are still getting a little bit of the element of fresh, but kind of doing it in a more, I guess that would be economical, but eco-friendly way too. Or I've seen a lot of that popping up, which I think is a great segue. So it's still not on your hands, but not necessarily feeling like you're investing in something that isn't going to be around for a while.
Absolutely. And reusing that sort of stuff is always a fun thing once you're all done, because you've got all those beautiful memories associated. That's a really cool idea. I like that. All right. So you actually just answered the next question, but you might have more tips on this.
Okay.
Any tips on budget-friendly florals that still look really beautiful?
So, keeping it simple, I actually, place I have a preference a dollar store, and I was turned a true believer in the last couple years to that, because people don't really think of the dollar store as a place where you can get that kind of stuff. But for simple arrangements, I love the idea of if you got like a really nice charger, dollar store has them, but you get a really cool charger. Maybe you do a little bit of like hurricane glasses, floating candles. Then you could get some fresh greens. I know a lot of couples are doing that in centerpieces, or just some fresh greens around the edges. So you don't need to have these big arrangements that are being done and have to get done in advance. And but just like taking buds and just doing bud vases. I love the idea of if you bring in other elements like stacks of books with vases on, like a little bud vase on top, or multiple vases on each table, things like that, I think are a great way to bring fresh elements in, but without having to invest a ton, because if we're at the you have 150 people and you've got 15 tables at least, so they're just ways that are bring in some kind of fresh elements. Nice, so you can just do it in smaller quantities, but then candelabras or things like that on the tables are a cool way to do it.
Absolutely. We've done everything in the middle of a table, from a like build your own mule station where we put a bunch of ginger beers and limes and bottles in there, or we had like a little fishing thing in the middle of a table. Obviously, this is not for a wedding. That was for an event for a brand that really loves fish. So it's always like a different. There are a lot of different things that you can put in there. Books are a great option. I think that always looks beautiful, and it's really affordable. Plus, it's nothing that's going to go bad. Books are always something that you can have. So I love that idea. Yeah. Are there a couple of small details you'd recommend? So like, let's say you're building that priority list we talked about at the beginning. Okay. Are there small details that you think make a big impact, or are there things that people don't maybe think to prioritize that maybe they should?
I think that postage for invitations.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are switching to online invitations. I personally still hard believe in, paper invitations and mailing everything out. Postage can get extremely expensive. So I think something that's not going to be one of your 3 pillar things, but that's something definitely to keep in mind. And if you're sending out 100 invitations,
right,
it could get really expensive because you have to have the postage for the RSVP card and the actual envelope itself. And then when it comes to postage, I would suggest putting together a sample invitation, taking it to the post office, making sure they can run it through the regular machines, because sometimes they can't and they cost more postage. So postage is a big thing that I think that doesn't come across initially.
When you're thinking about that, that's such a great consideration, because when you're thinking about that, you can go and actively get invitations that will be more that forever stamp situation versus one that's going to cost you upwards $3-4 per invitation. And that adds up. Absolutely.
It does. Absolutely. And so postage is a big thing. I think, one of the really big pillars is venue for most people, regardless of the event. So, and there are venues popping up all over the place, and all of them are beautiful, and all of them, are fantastic. And I've seen, and I hate when this happens, but seeing a couple fall in love with a venue that is taking too much of that core budget.
Yeah.
But it might not offer, if it doesn't offer anything to you and it's taking up that much of budget, then you need to, then it's not the venue for you.
Absolutely.
It's, if it's got the tables and chairs and it's got a really long rental time and maybe a bridal suite, and if it's got all that stuff and that takes a little bit more, then, that's fine, because it's offering a lot of things already taken care of for you. If it's what you call naked spaces, if you will, where you have to bring everything in, not only are you having to have all those additional rental costs, but most likely they're expecting move in and move out the same day, which is going to cost X more amount of dollars for delivery and pickup. So that's one of those also compromising things I kind of talked about, where it is a non-negotiable, but it has to be within reason. That
absolutely,
if it doesn't offer you anything, it's sometimes just not going to work. Another one of the elements you can't force to fit in there.
Right. I think the corollary to that is when you're negotiating with your venue, finding out what all those hidden costs could or should be. I know that we've worked with venues in the past that I made the very poor assumption that the bathrooms would be included for free, that are on site at the venue, or that we'd be able to turn the lights on in the venue and not be charged extra. The venue itself was very affordable, but then when you added in, they wanted $1,500 just to turn the lights on. They wanted another $1,500 to turn the air conditioner on. They wanted another $3,000 for us to be able to use the bathrooms. All of that added up to make it the most expensive venue in the city. So on paper, at first, it looked like the most affordable venue in all of Portland, Oregon. And then you get in there and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, if I want to bring in my own trash cans, they want to charge us $200 per trash can. Okay. So, all of that stuff really adds up. So when you're looking at venues, I cannot recommend more talking through all of the aspects, even stuff that you assume is going to be included, like electricity and bathrooms running water.
That's wild,
right?
That's a lot. I haven't heard about anything that extreme, but yeah, definitely.
It's one particular company in Oregon that does that. I don't think a lot of folks do it, but I have seen other hidden costs in other places that I just never, and the trash thing is always like top of the list. Very few venues, at least in my experience, not very few, I'd say 50-50, will just include trash pickup and removal from spaces. And that can add up really quickly. So making sure that you know what the venue includes and what it does not include is very important.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, like, and if there is some, don't also, I find a lot of couples who are really timid, or they don't want to ask the questions that they need to ask to get the answers. And then they might miss out on an opportunity because they didn't ask, because it's, I don't know if it's they're scared, or they're, or
we're taught it's rude, and it's not rude. We're doing business, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so don't be afraid to ask. I mean, if you love a venue and it's kind of a stretch, well, maybe see if they have a different rate for Sunday, and if you're open to a Sunday or a Friday night, or if it's different for an afternoon and not an evening. Like there's different things to ask for. And what's the worst we're gonna say? No. I mean, and then you just know. And if you don't know, then you might have passed up on an opportunity. So it don't hurt to, it doesn't hurt to ask. And
Yeah.
I mean, we are here to assist. So, I do, just have the vendors just work for you. I mean, really, I mean, trying to get, the information that you need. So, and just try to be as open as you can. And if, I work under the guise of or complete transparency when it comes to everything. I don't like to be shady or super hidden when it comes to that. Like I said, because a person's budget is a budget and it's there for a reason. So, it's just, again, like, don't want to feel like you're in work with the devil for, a year of planning.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah,
but having
so
a
don't be afraid to
planner,
ask a question.
Having a planner is like, I think folks sometimes look at it as a luxury and not something that maybe could even will definitely keep you on budget, but more than that will probably save you money in the long run. In my experience, having professionals to sort of guide the process, you have access to more information, more vendors, you have relationships with those vendors. Having somebody who is a professional planner very often is going to make your life just so much easier, but it's also going to save you money. So you're both saving time and money by having a professional in that role. So my tip, which you probably would not say because you might feel it's too self-serving, but it's not. You definitely, go out and find an event planner who's a professional like Sarah who can take care of you, because it's at long term, in my experience, I think it's going to save you money.
And yeah, and like I said, I referenced your time is money too, even if this isn't your job. So like, it's when you start to collect all these, different vendors and things like that, there's a lot of invoicing. So having a planner to help organize that is definitely going to help for the worth of your time on the back end. And like, if you go to a venue, the venue's going to expect you to tell the vendors where to park. Well, why do you need to know that? You don't need to think about that on your wedding day. It's not. You're not their valet, so why don't you need to tell them? So that's why people like me and event planners help, because we'll coordinate all that. There's those things you should not be worrying about, or even have to fill in with your head those kind of details, because they need to be talked about, but you don't need to be the one having the conversation. So
it's also an accountability buddy. Having a planner is an accountability buddy, because you're going to fall in love with something that's out of your budget. Like that just at every event I've ever thrown, even ones that aren't for me, right, that are for others, I fell in love with something that's way out of budget. And just having somebody who's your accountability buddy to be like, that's really cool and we love it, but is it worth not feeding your guests? Is it is it worth not doing this, or not having this venue, or what have you? So I think that's another really, it's having an impartial person who's going to just give you their professional opinion the whole way through, which makes a huge difference, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, you have answered everyone's questions, and this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for being a part of our Spritz Society. We have loved having you.
Thank you.
Check out our Instagram for more content about Sarah. We have some carousels with some tips from Sarah, along with a video featuring our amazing Sarah here, just being fabulous in planning events in Baltimore. And you can, of course, always come like and subscribe all of the pages here, either on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, facebook.com/PDXCW and youtube.com/PDXCW. Instagram is instagram.com/PDXCW. Go figure. And if you like all of those pages, you're going to have a first look at all of this content as it comes out. Well, Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your time today, and I can't wait to come to Baltimore and see you for real.
Yes, absolutely. It's so nice to thank you for having me. It's been an awesome experience. And I guess Sunday is the Ask Me Anything situation.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
I didn't even tell the people. Oh, Sarah.
Trying to cut my time with you short.
On Sunday, we are doing an Ask Me Anything with Sarah. So if you have questions for Sarah, please, please, please pop them in the comments or send them my way, Lindsay@LushLifeProductions.com. We will make sure that all of those questions get asked. And Sarah's going to share even more info with you then. So Sarah, I will see you on Sunday. And
yes, absolutely.
We'll see all of you there too.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.